good morning or afternoon or evening, whatever time of day it is when this video finds its way to you. It's April 1st, 2020. My name is Sarah Carlson. I am a fourth grade teacher from a small town in rural Maine. I join teachers from all around the world working to find new ways to connect with our students and deeply missing our face-to-face interactions with them. I'm also a poet. And no, this is not an April Fool's joke. I actually independently published my second book during the pandemic. I was just able to pick them up yesterday from where they were dropped off, and I'm sitting between two stacks of them, getting ready to sign them and drop them off at a local bookstore called Devaney, Doak, and Garrett Booksellers. The owner of that store, Kenny Breckner, and I are teaming up to find ways to get this book into people's hands. So I should say my first book was called The Radiance of Change. This was published 2 years ago, and it's a book about moving into a phase of healing after the sudden death of my husband, Barry, in 2002. The second book, called In the Currents of Quiet, is more about finding stillness and movement within that stillness. It's a book that's full of light and love and presence, and I'm so very proud of it. And I believe that it has a real place in the world right now. Little did I know when I came up with the title of the book in December, In the Currents of Quiet, where we would be landing here in March and April, where we all are being somewhat quiet. So I'll show you the cover. I want to just tell a little bit of a story about the cover. So this is a picture of the Sandy River, which runs through my town. And there's a poem in here that goes with this picture. Each poem is paired with a picture of the natural world, I should say. And this particular picture, as you can see, there's rain clouds over here. Obviously, this was a fall day. And I went out for a bike ride. I love to go for long bike rides. So I had ridden to another town. And during my ride, I ended up in a rainstorm, which, you get wet sometimes when you bike, no big deal. So I came out of the storm and looped back around. And this picture was taken about 2 miles from my house on a bridge. And it was one of those times where I was deeply thinking about Barry. I had just done a reading up in Rangeley, which is not far from here and happens to be the town where I met him in the summer of 1975. So he was really on my mind, and it was just a gentle missing of him. It felt fine, but it was definitely there. So I came across the bridge and I looked down the river and I just had that moment of, oh. So I stopped, pulled out my phone, and took this picture. And so I love that this is on the cover because it represents going through stormy times, coming into lightness, the stillness, and the movement that can happen when you allow yourself to be still. So I think what I would like to do is read the blurbs from the back of the book, because it's hard for me to, sell myself, so to speak, because I'm not really trying to do that. Obviously, I do want to sell books, but what I'm really looking for is for people to understand the beauty and the value of this book, and I figure the best way to do that is to read the blurbs that some amazingly wonderful people wrote for the back of this book. The first one is by Karen Montanaro, who is a performer and educator from Maine. She writes, I wish everyone on the planet could read Sarah's newest collection of poems. This testament to the human spirit is profound and uplifting. Khalil Gibran writes, the deeper that sorrow carves into your being, the more joy you can contain. I often think of this when I read Sarah's poems. Her cup of sorrows overflows with eloquence, wisdom, insight, and imagery that speaks to the heart and makes it whole. What a gift. Oh. The next one is by Jonathan Borkham, who is a psychologist. To read Sarah's poems and to linger among her photographs is to see the world and oneself anew, whole and luminous, in which the magic is not in some faraway place, but present every moment within and around us. Buy this book, dwell among its pages, savor its paths and vistas, and carry its perspective into the world. The next one is by Doug Dunlap, who is an author from this area. He wrote the Foot and Paddle series on the western mountains of Maine. Ice chunks break free at spring thaw. Clouds swathed rocky summits offer new ways of seeing. Tidal pools, thermal currents, and sheer quiet serve as windows on healing. Sarah Carlson's fresh collection is gently powerful, tenderly vivid. She claims her own validity as enduring love has the last word. These poems form a remarkable work of transformation for herself and for those who take her poetry to heart. The Reverend Ann Kidder writes, in this second book of poetry, Sarah Carlson continues her journey inward, to that place where spirit and our lives become one. Those pathways to wholeness that Sarah forged and marked for us in her first book now beckon us onward as she invites us to join with her in finding new ways forward in our own lives. Thank you, Sarah, for these poems and for the honesty that shines through them. And lastly, Daniel Gibbons, who is an osteopathic physician, writes, Sarah Carlson's poetry shows us the path from healing to health. Her words are medicine. So my desire is to get these words of medicine out into the world. I'm going to read just a couple of poems to give you an idea of the setup of the book. The first one is called The Poetry of Stillness, and it's paired with, with a picture of icicles after a spring storm. The Poetry of Stillness. Reflective, seemingly placid waters are actually on the move, a natural glide whenever, wherever there is a slope, however slight. Motion caused by that downhill flow, temperature fluctuations, underground springs, gentle breezes, fish swimming, or even a human paddling is always present. The hush of a sunset, hope of a sunrise, pull of the moon, lull of the wind, without movement would not be. Like the subtle drip of icicles on a muted morning after a spring storm, there are times when all seems paused and there's a clarity to the interplay of dark and light, to what one sees, feels, comprehends that is deeply undeniable. All just is as it is, a poetically pure moment of truth and stillness. This next one is called Totally True Reflections. This was written last summer after I had taken a bike trip to Nova Scotia. And part of the bike trip was going on a sea kayak adventure in Blue Rocks, Nova Scotia. So that's the picture right there. Totally True Reflections. As you sit in stillness, recognize that you know how to move forward, though the way ahead may be previously unexplored. You know when to pause and breathe, soak in the splendor, contemplate a challenge. You have the ability to read the winds, ride the waves, paddle strong and steady, adjust the rudder along the way. You have what you need on board, including the freedom to ask for and receive help. You are perfectly human in your own wonderfully unique way. And yet there's a sameness to the flow of connection to others, to nature, to the divine. So go ahead, sit in that stillness. Let clarity come in beautiful, crystal clear, totally true reflections. Sit and feel secure in the solid vessel that is you. Thank you for listening. This book will be available online through Devaney Doak and Garrett Booksellers. Kenny Breckner's working very hard to continue to get books into people's hands through this really difficult time. So he and I are teaming up in hopes that people will purchase this book through their website. It's ddgbooks.com. That's ddgbooks.com, and you can put in the title, In the Currents of Quiet, and it'll take you right there. You could also purchase The Radiance of Change there if you'd like. So thanks a lot, and keep reading, keep writing, keep thinking, and be well.